Thank you for joining us this hour for America's Vote 2024, the Iowa Caucus. I'm back with The Hill's senior contributor and host of the Daily Debrief, Kevin Cirilli. And Kevin, we have some big news here. Decision Desk HQ has called the Iowa caucuses for former President Donald Trump. I have the numbers right here. They're still coming in. Trump right now at 56.3%, Nikki Haley at 18.1%, Ron DeSantis at 17.5%, Vivek Ramaswamy at 7.1%. I will note that is with less than 1% of the votes in, but very quickly, folks are calling it for the former president.
Well, all the major networks, the Associated Press, obviously our own Decision Desk HQ, calling it for former President Donald Trump. This is a massive win, an early test of his support for the Republican primary and caucus season as he now heads into New Hampshire a winner. This is the first time that Trump has ever won an open caucus contest. He lost in 2016. He was now able to win in what is a somewhat crowded field. Ron DeSantis, this is terrible news. Ron DeSantis, the DeSantis campaign, they wanted to win. They wanted to pull off an upset. They are not able to do that. And obviously now the story becomes who comes in second place. But the big headline, Trump wins Iowa. Trump won Iowa. That bears repeating. So now he heads in to New Hampshire with that momentum, and he wants to project a large margin of victory.
Trump wins Iowa. Trump overwhelmingly wins Iowa, and he wins it quickly. I mean, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Caucuses began at 8 o'clock. This was an extremely fast time to call this race.
Well, there's two things, and it's too early to have the full, complete picture, but there's two things that really jump out at me right now. That's suburban Des Moines. These are suburban voters, and when you look at suburban voters traditionally, they decide election. They're swing voters. They go back and forth every single year, but the Republican swing voter in suburban Des Moines backing Trump is a devastating blow to Nikki Haley's campaign, particularly heading in to New Hampshire, because the basis of her political argument was that she would be able to get the moderate Republican voter. What Trump's showing by winning suburban Des Moines is that he has the ability, at least in Iowa, to win the moderate suburban Republican voter. Separately from that, elsewhere, in terms of just the overall apparatus of mobilizing a base. Trump was clearly able to mobilize a base in sub-zero temperatures. I'm sick of talking about the weather. I feel like Al Roker. But he was able to get them out in his neck of the woods, and they showed up. And so, like it or lump it for Wall Street, whether or not they want to jump on this or not, we don't know yet. But Trump appears to be poised for a lot of momentum heading into New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And look, we're still seeing this battle for second place. The results are updating second by second. But right now, Ron DeSantis just took an extremely slight lead, 17.5 to 17 for Nikki Haley. I mean, at this point, again, still less than 1%. They're neck and neck. And neither one of them wanted to be in this position, particularly Ron DeSantis, because he went full court press on Iowa.
You know, Chanel, I got to be honest with you. I know we're political junkies. I know we're in the weeds. But top line view, if you're watching the Emmys or watching the NFL game, the only thing that people are going to hear is Trump won. And winning typically means more winning, at least in politics in terms of momentum. Now, Iowa has had a checkered past, but for Trump, the stakes were very high, because if there was some type of, if he didn't win, that would have been a massive story and would have shown that he didn't have inevitability. But right now, heading into New Hampshire, he's got a lot of momentum. But separately from that, I would also just note, in terms of the margin of victory, he cleared that hurdle overwhelmingly. And, you know, we'll have to wait and see in terms of what the polls suggest. But from the past, what a remarkable, talk about peaking too soon for Ron DeSantis. Here's a guy who started the year with some polls suggesting that he was ahead of Trump. Remember all those stories? And he hired Ted Cruz's apparatus in Iowa, which won Iowa back in 2016. Jeff Rowe bailed. not to get too inside the weeds, Jeff Rowe bailed.
Oh, there were a lot of issues with that super PAC.
Bailed
yes.
on Ron DeSantis. So what kind of message does that send for the Florida governor who bet it big on Iowa, ethanol country, and wasn't able to have the turnout of the vote on the same day, mind you, that Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican who Nikki Haley endorsed in 2016 for his presidential campaign, remember the little Marco thing that Trump called him, remember the nickname?
Of course.
Well, Marco Rubio backed Trump earlier, or in the past couple of days. Right. So clearly some more inner Republican jockeying going on.
You always have the inner Republican
I can't help
jockeying.
it.
It's politics. This is Washington for you.
I live for it. It's a part of me that I don't like, but I live for it.
You know what?
City. You have that too, Schnell.
It's this city. We'll do a quick look back at the polls right now. Trump at 57.6%, DeSantis 17.3%, Nikki Haley 17.1%, Vivek Ramaswamy 7%, still 1% of results in. But again, Trump taking this lead in Iowa, going into New Hampshire, and the rest of the 2024
cycle. Can I just say two other things? I was just reading one of those analysts up on the streets notes, when they were looking, they got a very different read of Ann Seltzer's poll than I got. Because what they were saying was, nobody in the Republican Party wants Trump. Not according to these results. Mm-hmm. So there's still like this divorced reality from what's happening in the heartland to what's actually, what the folks up in the business class and the C-suite are talking about. They can't translate. They really still don't get it. And separately from that, this whole notion of, we've talked about this, but this is the 20th anniversary of the Howard Dean scream. Mm-hmm. And Trump,
a legendary moment in American politics.
And probably one of the first viral moments. But, I think I would be remiss that do we think we're going to get another one of those moments from a Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy? Did you see Vivek and Trump actually were at the same caucus site? Uh-huh. So why do you think that is? So my mind goes, what was Vivek trying to tell Trump by showing up at that caucus site? Clearly there was something that he's going to try to do.
The relationship between the two of them has been fascinating to watch. I mean, just this week, seeing Trump clapping back at Vivek after, Vivek has been very nice to Trump on the trail. It's been a fascinating relationship to see play out.
Yeah, well, because Trump's just, the big chatter, I think, for many of the DeSantis and the Haley orbits that and you've talked to the same folks that I'm talking to, Schnell, they were banking, emphasis on the word banking, that there would be some type of cataclysmic, meteoric thing that took out Trump's candidacy. And if it wasn't an indictment, what's it going to be? And quite honestly, they really didn't take the gloves off of Trump. And I would even argue they've only taken one glove off to go up against Trump.
I want to mention something on that note quickly. CNN has these entrance polls talking to folks when they're going into the caucuses. A fascinating stat right here. They were asked, would Trump still be fit for office if he were convicted? Of course, he's facing 4 indictments right now. 63% of caucus goers said yes. Only 32% said he wouldn't be fit for office. So that just shows that no matter what happens with these legal challenges and these legal entanglements this year, going from courtroom to campaign rally, it just isn't going to matter.
Well,
it may not matter.
And I hate to say this, and this is tough, right? But we got to own this in the mainstream media. And it's uncomfortable for us to talk about, but we really have to talk about it because it is uncomfortable to talk about as a communicator, as a host, and whatnot. And that is, we sometimes overemphasize a lot of these issues and in terms of the calculation. And I will be the first to admit that we in the media have to earn the trust of the public. But Schnell, they're talking about immigration. They're talking about foreign policy and defense of Israel and what's happening in the Middle East. They're talking about China and specifically how China is taking advantage of the United States worker. These are the issues. Back in 2016, it was healthcare. I remember being on Trump's long shot presidential campaign, traveling to all of those rallies. And I'll tell you what, they were talking about all of his tweets and whatnot. Then it was Twitter. Now it's X. But Trump and his campaign was marketing on the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and that arguably was one of the dominant issues that was able to secure him the nomination. So I say all of that to mention that, yes, it's obviously historic, unprecedented that you have a frontrunner for a party and someone who's a former president of the United States up against the Supreme Court for whether or not he can run. But let's not forget that elections are about issues, and Americans want to know what the leader in the Oval Office is going to do for their community.
Very true. Very true. Kevin Cirilli, night number 1 of voting in the 2024 election. First of many. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Schnell.
All right, and thanks for joining us for our live updates on America's Vote 2024. For more live coverage throughout the evening, please tune into News Nation for all of tonight's results and check out thehill.com for updates from the Hill's campaign team.